Hi, it's me, Kelly O'Connor with Financial Caffeine. Another question I get a lot after someone has gone through my material is, Kelly, isn't this a universal life policy that you're talking about? So today, what I want to do is go through the difference between the whole life and the universal life. Stick with me. All right, so this one's pretty simple. We have the UL versus the whole life. And boy, within my industry alone, right, when you get a bunch of insurance people together, that's an exciting convention, let me tell you. This is a very common debate that happens maybe as you're sitting there in the hotel conference room having a beverage. You get a lot of universal life practitioners and a lot of whole life practitioners. And there are purposes for each one. So what I want to do is dispel just some of the differences between these two so that you understand what it is I do and why I do it and why someone might utilize one of the others. All right, so let's remember the key with any insurance company first that I utilize is we want them to be an A-rated company. We want them to be a mutual structure. We want them to have a low cost of insurance, and we want them to utilize non-direct recognition when it comes time for us to be leveraging our policy. Now, this is very common over here in the whole life. It's not that common here with the UL. A lot, I don't want to necessarily even say most, a lot of the universal life companies or the agents who sell the UL products, a lot of those companies are from a stock insurance company. It's not like stock insurance companies are horrible, but I just believe over time it doesn't maximize the policy, and that's what I strive to do. Now, here's one of the key factors that is very important to understand. The cost of insurance with ULs, I believe, over time blows up, if you will. And here's why. If you have, let's say this is your age, and this is your cost of insurance. ULs start like this. And here's what they do. The death benefit of any UL policy is a term policy, and it's an annual renewable term, meaning every single year the death benefit is paid, the cost of that is through a term policy. Now, as you know, when you're young and healthy, term insurance is super cheap. So while you're, if you get this at 25 and 35 and heck, my age, even 49, these term policies aren't that expensive. But once you get up to the top of the mountain, if you're say 65 or 70, and you begin to use this policy coming down, your internal cost continues to rise every year. You have an increasing cost internally. I believe, and I've seen it demonstrated so many times as I analyze these, is at distribution, this causes an issue. Because not only are you using it and you're slowly utilizing that money and leveraging it, but then if you have an internal cost that's increasing, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get all the way down the mountain. Now, here's what they do. They call it squeezing the corridor. So here's what I've seen. How do I demonstrate this the best way? Let's look at the mountain. So we have a low cost of insurance as we climb, we stake our flag, and we begin to distribute our money. And in order to decrease the cost of insurance, in order to keep those monies lasting and forever in perpetuity for us, what they do is they decrease the death benefit. So imagine at age 75, you have $3 million in life insurance, and on an annual renewable term, that's quite expensive, which puts a lot of pressure on your cash values. So what do they do at that point? They lower the life insurance, let's just for simple math, let's just say to $1.5 million, which decreases your cost of insurance, which now doesn't put as much pressure on your values. So you see, while you're younger and you're building a family, you've got the insurance, then as you're distributing, they can decrease that insurance, they squeeze that corridor. But I have a fundamental issue with this. This guy goes to bed literally this night with $3 million of life insurance, he wakes up the next day with $1.5 million. This is the only tax-free tool that gets passed on to his beneficiaries. Where do we accommodate for the $1.5 million difference in estate value, in value to his wife or spouse or kids? We just wake up and have $1.5 million less. I see the benefit of the policy of growing and then a way to mitigate the cost by squeezing that corridor later. I understand it, and sure, maybe this guy has no purpose for it. Maybe this gal doesn't need it. That's always a possibility. That's why I don't say ULs are bad. There's just components you need to understand. Typically, the people I work with, their death benefit becomes a part of their plan, because it allows them to spend other assets. You see, if you have $3 million off to the side or in a form of a death benefit that your beneficiaries are going to get, you're not so scared about going out and spending all your other assets because, because you know you've got the life insurance. Well, if all of a sudden that life insurance drops by half, there's some implications to that. So again, it's not that ULs are bad. There's very often where they're an excellent tool to use. In many cases, you can get cash in them faster, which is potentially a good thing if someone is really needing to shove cash in quick. So the one component that I come back to is the cost of insurance, and it is often a stock company, and they are typically a direct recognition structure. So when you utilize the money in them, when you leverage the money in them, you've lost some of the ability to earn. So it's just a common characteristic that you find with UL policies. Yes, they're A-rated, stock companies, and increasing cost of insurance, which can pose issues, and they are typically a direct recognition. Now, whole life, the ones that I work with have all four of these. And the cost of insurance is fixed, right? So what that means is it can sometimes take a little bit longer to get money in there, and that's why we want a very low cost of insurance, because we want to get our cash in as quick as we can and minimize that cost as much as possible. But it's flat. It costs us the same when we're 25 for that policy as it does when we're 75. So we don't have any additional variables that could impact us later, and any death benefit that happens later on, we know we can plan for every single year. There's no adjustments to that. So some of the positives with the UL, they do have some really good early growth potential. That's good. They do have an early low cost of insurance. That's good. And you can, some cases, get cash into them a little sooner. Now, the way that they mitigate some of their aspects, some of the negatives, is they can mitigate their expenses with an increasing cost of insurance. All right? A whole life, it's a little bit slower. Well, that would be a negative, I guess. Let's do the negative first. It's a little bit slower to get capital in it. And in most cases, we're dealing with a plan that's 20, 30, 40 years long. It really becomes an irrelevant discussion right there. Positives, flat cost of insurance. Good Lord, I cannot spell today. And they can mitigate their expenses. Mitigate expenses by lowering dividends and creating new products. But we gain some contract law provisions because we are with the mutual company. We're in a non-direct structure, so we can leverage this thing all we want without any implications. And we have an excellent distribution rate without any impact of an increasing internal cost. So again, I will never sit here and say ULs are horrible, don't do it, because then all I'm doing is just peddling one particular strategy. There are strategies for ULs. what I do and the way that I do it and how I educate people tends to be about 90% of the time a whole life structure. And there's these reasons for it. Most of my clients aren't in a position where they're having to shove money in super quickly into the UL. Most of my clients have a longer term perspective and aren't wanting to be in a position with an increasing cost. So the one that has the least amount of unknown variables is the whole life, and that's why I stick to it. So hopefully this helps you understand the difference between the two. I'm sure you'll still have some questions, and of course I'm available to answer those. Now if you'd like, you've got that code, you can use it to waive my fee, get on my calendar, and let's dig into some of this strategy for you. I look forward to meeting with you.